Let me just say hello to Claire, who joined us online. Hi, Claire, can you hear me? Yes, I think you can.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Welcome. We're just waiting for all the speakers to come in. I think we have 3 of them. We're just missing one, who's actually the Assistant Minister for Agriculture. So we'll just take a few minutes. Sorry about the delay. We're actually in a different room than I thought. So the setup is not what we had planned. So I'm trying to see, as we wait for the 5th speaker of today, I'm just trying to see if we can arrange the room differently so we can actually all sit together here. So somebody just coming in a second. Yeah, and we'll get started maximum in 5 minutes. Okay, sorry for for this delay. I think we should get started. Uh, Before I ask the panel to join me on the stage, let me just make a quick introduction. Yeah. Um, so, well, welcome to our session titled "What Research System Will Make Us More Resilient?" As some of you already know, my name is Francesco Bino. I'm the director of the Research and Programs Unit at the Global Development Network. We're a very interesting panel today, but I wanted just to take 2 minutes to explain to you why, why this panel and where does it come from? Why are we interested actually in this question of research systems, right? This is a panel that will look at research system in its own right, in a way, as part of the larger system that needs to be in place for countries to have the capacity to be resilient. So we're looking at research as one of those strategic building blocks for resilience. Yeah, research capacity locally as one of those building blocks. Now, where does this interest come from? As some of you know, GDN is an international organization which is quite unique because we exist precisely to support research capacities on applied research, on development everywhere, locally, right? So we are born out of this kind of sense that the world needed an international organization that would focus only on that, right? That has its mandate, this very specific mission to support the development of local research capacities to debate and inform development policy and discussions. Now, about 10 years ago, GDN was created in 99, so we've been around for 25 years. But about 10 years ago, there was an internal reckoning, and we realized that actually we knew very little about research capacity in developing countries. In a way, we had been like working on the assumption that the lack of capacity, the lack of research capacity across the developing world was enough to justify our work. Obviously, this was not correct. And we saw it in our everyday practice because we only work through open calls. And every time we have an open call, we get very strong applications, right? And our calls are only open to the researchers based in so-called developing countries. So clearly there was something that wasn't quite working in that founding narrative around GDN. So this open questioning internally. The other thing we realized pretty quickly, looking at the literature on research capacity, specifically on social sciences, we realized that very little had been published on how research works in developing countries. So the literature on how research is structured, how research careers function, how research is funded, how research priorities are set for so-called northern countries is huge, right? Now, when we go into the so-called developing countries, there was not much at all, right? Which is ironic, which means that the research as a policy space, right, is not itself based on evidence. So the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research that have as a mandate to strengthen research and to fund research in their own countries usually do not have much information about how the system actually works in their own country. Answer is a fact. We have been talking to ministries of higher education across the planet, and they don't know things like how many researchers are active in the country, by discipline, how many women researchers are acting in the country. Basic information such as this are actually missing. So the research policy space as a policy space is not yet evidence-based or not enough, right? And this is where our interest at GDN started on research system. We decided we needed to pay attention to research systems in their own right, to understand how national research systems evolve, what trajectory they follow, what kind of triggers change in research systems, if we wanted to support them effectively, right? This is how we started the program we call Doing Research, yeah, which is a network of developing country researchers that looks at their own research systems. It's research of research, right? And by the way, we're starting one of its assessments in Fiji in 2025 with a team from USP, funded by the government of Fiji, right? We'll be looking at how social sciences, specifically in this case, work in Fiji. Now, as we started doing this, we realized that there's a very weak investment case, surprisingly. Yeah, Jean-Louis Arcon, my boss and the president of GDN, was saying in the opening ceremony that in the health sector, they work by investment cases, right? You need to make the case for funding a specific activities, not based on moral grounds, but based on what that investment will return on investments, basically, right? And we realized that the investment case for research and social sciences specifically is usually missing or very weak. So what we're interested in, what was interesting in having at this conference is a discussion from different perspectives about what do we need funding for when it comes to research, how that funding should be spent, and beyond funding, what else, which is not funding, that needs to be in place for a research system, national research system, to be performing, right? And thus contribute to the larger effort, resilience effort, strategy, adaptation efforts, you call it what you wish at the level of the country. Now, we have a very interesting group of speakers today. They're very different in terms of their own background, and we're not trying to get to a consensus. We're not trying to get very different perspectives and trying to see what are the common what differences and the common trends in the discussion. And I've asked something difficult, which is to keep comments limited to 3-4 minutes each, so we can go through a few rounds of questions and then interact with everyone. But let me introduce our panel and ask them to join me here on the stage. Is the Honorable Tomasi Nabuna here? The Minister? No, not yet. No? So he's coming. He's on his way. I have an email that says he's on his way. So he'll come here. Then let me just welcome again Professor Sushil Kumar, Director of Research at USP, to join me on the stage. Thank you. Professor Dominic Ong, Deputy Dean for Science at Griffith University. Thanks for what has been already a long day for you and for making it longer. Can I invite Dr. Lavini Tawake to join us on the stage, who's a researcher at USP, but also actually a grantee in one of our programs, the IFD GDN Biodiversity and Development program we've been running for the past 3 years. And online, we have Claire Rild, sorry, you'll have to teach me how to pronounce your family name, sorry, who's the brand new international director of the Australian Social Science Academy. Thank you for joining us online. Now, let's get started. The first question I ask you to think about is really about this investment case, in a way, right? I ask you, what concrete example would you pick? Yeah, would you choose to illustrate the importance of strong research capacities for a country's resilience? I think we had already a few examples during this 2.5 days, but I think it would be great to hear your thoughts. So Sheila, would you like to start?
Thank you, MC. I work in the University of the South Pacific, which serves the 12 island nations, and we have got 14 campuses. And we know that they are the national universities as well in some countries. And we do realize that we have got the limitation of resources as well. So in view of those, we need to focus on the kind of projects where we can work as a consortium. And I would like to give you an example of one project. Let me give 2 examples. The one of them is called as strengthening the research and innovation ecosystems to address the impact of climate in the Pacific. In short, we call RERIPA. This is an initiative which is funded by ACP Innovation Funds, the component of RNI programs of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, or ACPs, with the financial contribution coming from the European Union. So in this project, its USP is leading the project, and we have got the partners, for example, from Solomon Island University, the University of Vanuatu, the University of Samoa, and there are some NGOs and so on. And then we have got those objectives and activities, and those they have been assigned to where the strength is. For example, like if the Solomon Island University is strength in X, then those activities have been given to them. And that's how the distribution of those activities have been made. And you know that when you have got the consortium, and there are some NGOs as well, for example, like SSTI. And then when you are the consortium based, it is important that you have very regular meetings. So we have those monthly meetings and look at how the things have progressed. And this is one of the project, I think, in which we will be doing the mapping of the research and innovation systems to address the impact of climate change. I think one example. The further details are available with me. In case any one of you would like to know, I will be happy to supply you. Under the same funding scheme, there is one more project, what we call in short the chances. The chances stands for the climate change and then the futures of coastal communities, the transformation of socially livelihood, and then the lifestyle in the South Pacific. In this project, again, the USP is leading, and we have got the University of Vanuatu as in one of the lead partner, and then the SINU, and there is one NGO as well. You know that because of the climate change and the sea level rise, there is a coastal erosion, there is a coastal inundation, and then those are severe surges as well. So this is where we have picked up the two communities in Fiji, two in Solomon Island and two in Vanuatu, which are coastal and which are facing the challenges. And this is where we are going there, trying to know what are the issues, conducting the workshops, and then providing these solutions and supports. So I would go give these two examples. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sushil. What I get from what you say that actually the case you'd make is around the importance, the urgency of the topics you're looking at, and the fact that you're doing that through collaboration, both with other institutions.
Yeah.
So like connecting brain power, basically, collecting intelligence in a way, and also being present in the communities, which promises to obviously generate knowledge that is relevant to those communities as well. So thanks for that. Dominic, can I pass the mic to you? And we know you come from the engineering world, which is fascinating. So please, I'm really looking forward to your comments as well.
Yes, thank you, Francesco, for the invitation to this session. So I'm a for those that did not attend the earlier plenary session, I'm Dominic Ong. I'm a civil engineer by training, geoenvironmental engineer recently, because the work that we do in civil engineering quite often interface with the environment. So we want to introduce sustainable infrastructure, but at the same time, we do not want to damage or hurt the environment. So we have to look at things very objectively and try to actually come to middle ground so that we could actually roll out the project as well as benefit from it. So some of the concrete examples that I can actually think of that's recently related to my research area is that Australia now is actually focusing a lot on natural hazard. And I come from Griffith University, so we have campus in Brisbane, we have campus in Gold Coast, and also we work very closely with the other regional universities all across Queensland. And there is a Hydra. Okay, let me just read out this QDRA. QDRA is actually Queensland Disaster Research Alliance. Okay, and the objective is to bring high impact disaster management research outcomes to the whole community. So if you were to look at the landscape in Australia here, Queensland is the state that probably take the brunt of a lot of natural disaster like cyclone and floods. Okay, and also bushfire. And in this particular QDRA, okay, is a consortium of all the universities in Queensland. I'll read this at universities, their names out. Central Queensland University, James Cook University, University of Southern Queensland, Griffith, of course, University of the Sunshine Coast, Queensland University of Technology, and of course, with the government participation, Office of Queensland Chief Scientist, and of course, not forgetting the University of Queensland. So what happens is that we have representative that sits in the within the committee, and then the representative from each uni would actually feedback to us to see what are the available grants that's available for all researchers to actually apply. So if you really think about the objective of this, when we talk about natural hazards, it just straddles across all disciplines. You have health, you have engineering, you have the business people, and you also have the law and the arts researchers who are all can be quite heavily involved when there is a natural disaster. So this consortium here is actually
So thanks to the Honorable Tomasi Tunabuna, Assistant Minister for Agriculture, Government of Fiji, to have joined us. Thank you. Please, Dominic, sorry for the interruption.
no problem. Continuing to what I was saying in terms of QDRA, there's the objective is to promote collaborative growth, and there's no way that we could actually tackle the challenges in front of us by ourselves on a single uni. And there are also funding opportunities, media engagement, government collaboration. So it's a one-stop, in a way, alliance that promote opportunity for us to put our best foot forward and try to tackle natural disaster as how researchers would actually do that. Now, on the other front, I'd also like to also mention there's also a just now what I mentioned was actually the state level. So there's also a national level in terms of managing the risk of research is or hazard related research, which is the Natural Hazards Research Australia, NHRA. Okay, and then this particular research, how they actually roll out funding from the federal government is that they request for expression of interest. So within the expression of interest stage is that QDRA would actually pick up all the EOIs, that's what we actually call it, and then through all the representative going top down to the individual researchers who have certain expertise that resonate with the EOI. So with that, then they will collectively come together from various universities, put forward our best research expertise, and then very fairly, we will actually choose who are the ones who can really fit into the theme, and then we go in and try to win the grant. So these are a lot of collaborative effort, a lot of consortium involved, a lot of relationship building process, and a lot of trust being placed. So we look at this. These are the two examples that I can think of that's related to natural hazards, and I can really feel that this is the kind of thing that we can really put it out there and try to get more involvement that includes first responders, government, councils, universities, industry practitioners, and all the professional associations. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dominic. I think it's interesting what you say because we'll say if I interpret correctly, you're saying actually we can, given the way we work, we can find the right people to answer the right question, and we can also guarantee they will work together to answer the question across very different kind of institutions.
Because sometimes as researchers, we are very specific.
Yeah.
To our research area. So if there's a person who actually does all the paperwork to actually scan for grants that's available, I think that would really make full use of individuals' time more effectively.
Great. So research is a collective exercise. So thank you very much. Let me turn actually to maybe Honorable Minister. Yes, we are addressing the first question. So what would be the example you would pick to illustrate the importance of strong research capacity for a country's resilience?
Thank you. Let me introduce myself again.
Yes,
I'm Assistant Minister for Agriculture. I'm sorry again. Couldn't find the right location. I have some background in research. When I was a civil servant, I used to be research officer in livestock in the Ministry of Agriculture. But I think we have quite a number of a good example of the capacities of research and the effectiveness of research, not only in Fiji, but where we have opportunity to work with other governments to address issues and constraints that we have faced. I have two in particular that I'd like to highlight in today's discussion. One is when Fiji wanted to have a sheep breed that's suitable, that can survive well in Fiji and also for the region. We had both expatriate and local experts who were able to breed or have a successful breeding program on sheep, which involved quite a number of sheep breeds from all over the world. And now we currently have that breed that is suitable for the local climatic condition and also withstand or be able to produce with the poor nutrition that we have not only in Fiji but across the region. We were able to also breed sheep and distribute them to some of the Pacific Island nations, where they now have a small sheep industry to address the over-reliance of sheep meat from exporting countries, and also be able to expand livelihood from agriculture in our farming communities. The other one was a work that was collaborated between Western Samoa and the region, which includes our researchers in Fiji. And this was when the taro leaf blight affected the taro industry in Western Samoa and completely wiped out taro in Western Samoa. And the outcome of that research work was that we now have taro blight resistant varieties, not only for Samoa, but also here for Fiji. And I think from the late 1990s to now, we've never had a situation where the industry had been threatened with taro leaf blight, which is one of the very serious disease of taro. And I think it's two of the many examples that I know of the capacities that we have, not only in Fiji, but also for the region, and how we can collaborate with other researchers.
Thank you.
Whatever needs we have in agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One thing I noted down from what you said is, that the research you did resulted in choices in terms of which animal husbandry approaches to take, which were actually applicable to multiple countries in the region, because the research was itself undertaken across multiple countries. So in a way, research project you described, a kind of a form of regional collaboration that actually translates effectively in regional development. So I think thanks for that. I think it's so we're talking about region. Can I go to Claire online? Because Claire is as I mentioned, is the international director for the Australian Social Science Academy, and the Australian Science Academy, as Claire would tell us, actually hosts the association, the secretariat of the Association of Asian Social Science Research Councils. So Claire, off to you. What concrete example comes to mind, or would you pick to illustrate the importance of strong research capacity locally for a country's resilience?
Yeah, thank you, Francesco. And it's a real pleasure to be able to join this GDN conference and also to be a part of this panel. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be with you, even if it's remotely from camera. As you said, I am the international director for the Academy of the Social Sciences in Australia, and also as part of this role, the Secretary General for ASREC, so the Association of Asian Social Science Research Councils. I think the concrete example that I would use is linked to the fact that I think we can agree that there are some regional issues that disproportionately affect the Asia-Pacific region. Given the overarching theme of your conference, the first that comes to mind, of course, is climate change. But I think just COVID-19, the pandemic, was a wake-up call, I believe, that highlighted the critical need for regionally coordinated social science research that would help deliver public health strategies and also help swift economic recovery for the region. And I think this really shows that we need strong social science research and expertise as key enablers of social and economic development in the countries across the Asia-Pacific region. I think another specific thing is that we can agree that significant investments have been made in social science research and development over the past decade, but it lacks to some degree uniformity and also just concrete means, funding, and that can result in a lack of coordination between countries, and also a lack perhaps of systemic evidence. And the risk, of course, is for the social sciences to be in a form of marginalization, especially compared to STEM disciplines. So the concrete example that I would actually use to illustrate the importance of strong local research capacity is an initiative that is currently implemented by ASEC. So for those of you who don't necessarily know what ASEC is, it's the Association of Asian Social Science Research Council. It's an organization of national social science research council, academies, and also institutes. And its purpose is to promote regional cooperation in the field of social sciences. It has four founding members: India, the Philippines, South Korea, and Thailand, and 17 other members. And the initiative that I would like to highlight is the Boosting Social Sciences and their contribution to better lives across the Indo-Pacific. It's a collaborative partnership between ASREC and also the GDN and UNESCO. And it would not have been possible without the generous funding of the Canadians' IDRC, the International Development Research Council. So we got an initial funding for about 3 years. So from November 2023 until April 2026. And this initiative serves three major objectives. So first, to map social science research capacity, infrastructure, challenges and priorities across the region. The second objective is to facilitate engagement between researchers, collaborative planning, and also to create and strengthen enduring networks. And the third item is to support coordinating regional social science research with a particular focus on funding women early and mid-career researchers, and also researchers from minority group or underrepresented group in developing countries. This program has 8 components, and I will only focus, because I know that time is scarce, I will only focus on 2 components that are being delivered since the beginning, since the start of this initiative in late 2023. The first is the International Collaboration Engagement Grant for early and mid-career researchers. I think it's absolutely key, as you see, to be able to provide funding for that specific category of social scientists. So it's a funding of up to 5,000 Canadian dollars per project for up to 12 months. And we are 2 rounds. So the first was in 2024, and we're expecting to run a second round of funding in early 2025. So overall, that will fund 22 research projects, and specifically targeted towards women and researchers from underrepresented groups. But probably the component that has the sort of biggest impact in terms of funding is the Priority Social Science Research Grants. It's up to 50,000 Canadian dollars per project, and it really aims to put together and help collaborative teams across the Indo-Pacific region, so researchers from various countries. It's also targeted to researchers from underrepresented categories in the social sciences. And we think we're really looking forward to the 6 successful teams that were very recently notified of the successful application to start working. So yes, that's from the point of view of ASREC, it's the example that I think really illustrates the importance of strong local research capacity.
Thank you, Claire. And one of the most interesting things I find about this program, as you see, there's the GDN logo as well, because we collaborate in designing that very interesting program, is that it recognizes that issues are regional, yeah, but that national funding agencies very rarely can fund regional collaboration, right? Grants are for national researchers, right? It's rare to find a national grant that allows you to, work with, collaboration, the development of collaboration, relationship and collaborations with countries other than the one where the grant was issued. So, and in this case, it's the association, of granting councils that decided to do that. Right, so they understand that individually they cannot do that, but as a group of funding agencies from the region, they put that as a priority, right? So it's complementary to what they can fund nationally, yeah. And obviously for regional issues, one needs national research, regional research, right? Otherwise, it's difficult to find the right answers ultimately. Now, thank you, Claire. Thank you, Claire, for that. Let me turn to Lavenita Wake. So you're a researcher, yeah? And you're currently the program lead for a large research program at USP funded by the European Commission. After you, what example would you pick to make the case for local research in strengthening capacity of a country to be resilient?
Thank you, Francisco. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the GDN for supporting me to do research as a local practitioner, doing research to be able to inform policy. My example is local practitioners, local researchers working as practitioners on the ground and understanding the needs and the questions that the communities are asking. I think this will contribute to a strong local research capacity. So for example, in my case, as a local practitioner, I am closer and more aware to the challenges on the ground. And in my area of research that the GDN sponsored, I was able to see the challenges in loss of biodiversity through development projects. And we sort of attributed that to the weakness of environmental impact assessments. So because of practitioners that work on the ground and have research experience, information was brought to very quickly by gathering these biodiversity experts who are academics, who are EIA consultants, who are working on the ground and understand what works and what doesn't work with the EIA guidelines. So we brought them together and we were able to, this focus group that are able to identify or recommend areas of research, specifics for research to further that research, as well as recommend how to review the EIA guidelines. Another example I have is a while back, the Fiji Locally Managed Marine Area Network had working groups. They had socioeconomic working groups, biological working groups, and these working groups consisted of similar academics, people who have been working on the ground, allies of Fiji who've been here working along, as well as the indigenous people in the area that Flemmer worked. So annually they would come together and look at some learning lessons from learning, exchanging. And then there was a list of frequently asked questions from the communities that would be looked at, and then research questions identified from here. And then the learning coordinator of these working groups would reach out to international universities or universities and researchers who had come in the past to do research and tell them that these are the research questions. These are the questions that are present now in the communities, and then formulate the research around that. These working group type of setup of practitioners who are on the ground doing development projects, as well as being able to learn from the researchers and be able to do the research themselves. I think this is a good example of how the research capacity can be strengthened.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Another very interesting perspective, because ultimately you're saying researchers are more than researchers. You're saying, researchers are practitioners. They're not pure researchers. They already know themselves why is it that they need research to boost, to expand what they're trying to do as practitioners or as non-researchers, let's say. So interesting. We shouldn't just look at researchers as pure researchers with a coat in a lab isolated from the world. Actually, there's plenty of people who are absolutely very far from that stereotype. So by funding researchers, you also find people who have figured out why research is absolutely essential to advance practice as well. Now, is there any burning question in the room? Did we convince you? Did the panel convince you about, did you hear a case for funding research that, you say, okay, yeah, this could work. Just think about it. We're really trying to find kind of convincing arguments here. So let us know if there's anything that strikes you as new or particularly convincing. Now, the second question I wanted to ask the panel is the following. Well, everyone lives within a specific institutions. They know, operates within a specific environment and knows how things work, right? And of course knows the strengths and the weaknesses of their own institution, right? And I guess we understand which sides of those institutions and those policies and processes make us stronger, yeah, as researchers, and which ones actually hampering our work as researcher. So I think the second question is really about asking what are the key factors that make a research system more or less resilient, yeah, in a rapidly changing environment. What are the dimensions that actually make a research system stronger? And ultimately, so if you were to invest in something in the research system, what would you put your money in? That could actually trigger overall strengthening of the research system. Sushil, would you like to go first?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to acknowledge and appreciate the presence of Honorable Minister, Mr. Bulabinaka, and we are very happy that you are here. In terms of the less and then the more resilient, I would like to start from what our research systems are made of. And all of you know that you need academicians to do the research. Then you need the research offices, which will provide the support and then design the policies and so on. And then we need the research infrastructure, which requires the labs, instruments, the research students, and so on. I think we first of all have to know what are the expectations of academics from the support systems and what are those support systems actually supposed to do. So globally, if you look at, there is a survey which was done and it is available online. I have picked up a couple of points from there. What kind of support systems the academicians do need? And if I look at the three priorities, the number one priority is to facilitate the access to the funding opportunities where the academicians look at. And they need the support for funding proposals. And they also need the facilitation of collaborations across the institutions. Similarly, the three most priorities of any institution are also to obtain the more funding to increase the research to undertake and demonstrate the research impact and increase the quality of the research. I think that's how the overall research system is made of. If you look at our region, particularly the South Pacific region, we have got the limitation and constraints of the human resources, the financial limitations. We are a small island countries. We have got the small economies, and then at times there is a political instabilities. I think more common in the small islands, and then the impact of the climate change in terms of the natural hazards. I do work in the natural hazards study using the radio wave techniques. And
just keep the mic a bit closer so we can hear you also online. Thank you.
Sorry. So we did an analysis of about 30, 40 years of the tropical cyclones, which affect mostly the South Pacific region. We looked at their occurrence pattern, and we found that the overall occurrence pattern has not changed. But what has changed is the frequency of the intense tropical cyclones. That frequency has increased, and those are the most dangerous ones. And I think one of the unique limitation which the South Pacific region has got is that we do not have any funding agency like all the countries, Australia, New Zealand, India. They have got the funding agencies where the researchers can go and apply for the grants. Here we all depend upon internal grants or the external grants. And for the external grants, you know that you need the collaborations. They are all mostly the consortium based. And then the researchers and the research offices have also got an aim that how effectively we are targeting the sustainable development goals actually. And in the research impact, I think citation is most common, the scientific one. There is something new coming in that how we can commercialize our research, get the income from there, and what societal benefits our research can bring in. I think those are the challenges. But if you look at the South Pacific region particularly, it's a very young region. There's a lot of young population. Okay? And we are culturally very strong. We are culturally very well connected. And then the spirit of the respectfulness and politeness this region has got is remarkable. That means we work in a team really very well. We take care of one another. I think the unity and diversity and the young population who can work in the limited resources are some of the strengths which make us more resilient. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sushil. Very important points here. You know, it's not just about the I think you mentioned hard infrastructure in a way. Funding agency is like a hard infrastructure for research. Then you mentioned also kind of a small softer infrastructure, like research offices. Being able to go to someone who helps you figure out what requirements are to get funding. This kind of HR in support of that, etc. And then, well, in agriculture, I think it's called extension services, right? How to take the research into the world, right? I mean, this idea of researchers working alone, having a brilliant idea, and then just doing the research and figuring things out is absolutely unrealistic. There's a great example I quote often is that the UKRI, the UK Research and Innovation, which is this group of research funders in the UK, last year had a change in policy and reduced the number of eligible roles in a research project from 32 to 12. Now, you have to go to see the list of its 32. So we used to accept 32 different roles. Yeah, not only the PI and the researchers and research assistants and maybe a finance manager, etc. But 32 different roles in a research project. And now they streamlined it to 12. But I think the reality on most places is that you basically have 1 person and a half. Yeah, not 12 roles. Like you have one person playing multiple roles. And I think this is what I really get from your message. Honorable Tamuna, would you like to take the floor next?
Now with the agriculture sector and for the Ministry of Agriculture, one of the constraints that we have is again human resource and of course physical resources when we have all the research facilities, but with human resources, we have had in the past a lot of our skilled researchers leaving the ministry for other organizations within Fiji and also those who had joined other countries. And we are also facing difficulty in trying to have policies for retention of our researchers. So not only that we have limited personnel, we also have difficulty in trying to make sure that we retain the researchers that we have. Like that had already been mentioned, funding sources also be constrained to us. But we also think that the institutional framework that we have when we link up with other research organizations, with other similar organizations that are doing similar work, especially when we look at the effect of climate change, we seem to have some strength when we collaborate with other research organizations. And we like to believe that the more we can strengthen that link with other organizations, the better we can probably address the shortage of human resource and also share with the other resources, physical and financial resources. I think one constraint that we have already been mentioned is our stakeholder consultation involvement, and this has to do with how we can obtain information on what is normally required to be researched upon, and how researchers have been, or outcomes of research have been extended back to our farming and rural communities. Oftentimes, there seems to be some disconnect in this area, especially with how researchers can work out how they can disseminate the results that can easily be accepted and adopted by our farming communities. And over the last few years, where there has been a lot of breakdown in that area, we seem to be facing some problem trying to get back into where what we believe used to be best way we can extend research into the agriculture communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Extremely important point about what happens to research after it's produced, right? As generated. Okay. And which funders, which national funders actually think about that and fund the activities, right? I was in a conference last week in Cape Town where it was all about this. Like, we should stop producing evidence and start using the evidence we have sometimes, because on some topics, like some topics are actually over-researched. and we just like move from one project to the other. But that takes a specific way of funding research to enable researchers and the whole team around the researcher to take research into debates or action or policy or practice, right? Dominic, can I come to you? Thank you.
Yes, research systems. Okay, I'm going down to the technical nitty-gritty. I know some of you are hands-on researchers, some of your policymakers, but I've already spoken about the bigger picture. So now I'm going to get down into more of the research elements itself, and this is a sharing session, and hopefully you will actually benefit from this. So I'm going to start with a very new, if you wish, of doing literature review. So nowadays we do a lot of bibliometric analysis. So what it means is that if you are hooked up to the Scopus or the Web of Science databases, you can see that it has a lot of literature. So let's say you just heard about my research area on microbial induced carbonate precipitation. You are interested in this area. So how do you go about looking at information from this database very quickly and very efficiently? Okay, so what you do is that you search that and you will be able to download the .csv file. So when you download the .csv file on all the literature that has the keywords that I've actually talked about, you can talk about resilient infrastructure, you can talk about calcium carbonate precipitation. So all these keywords, listen down, you get a .csv file. Then after that, what you do, go to a software called VOS Viewer, VOS Viewer. Okay, and then it will receive this .csv file. Okay, and then it will plot. Of course, you have to read the manual and take half an hour to learn about how you actually process this data. And then it will plot you beautiful visualization plots, how keywords are linked, who are the top researchers in this area, which region published the most in this area. So all this is actually information at your fingertips, and you will be very shocked to see how easy this is done. I've got a few review papers with my PhD students. I've actually published, and then I can actually share with you after this session. You can see what are the beautiful interconnecting figures, who are the authors. You can plot pie charts, bar graphs, look at the statistics and all, citation, and all this. So this is one way of very quickly getting into the thick of the action and see and explore further what research area or whether there's any impact in this area or who are the people already working in this space that you can seek for collaboration and all. Okay, so the second thing I want to actually mention also is the open access policy with all the big publishers with Australia and New Zealand. So the motivation behind this is because a lot of research is done using public funds, and it should not be a secret. So it should be made available to everybody. And I believe this agreement started 2 or 3 years ago, and there is a quota for Australian and New Zealand universities who can publish within all the top journals like Elsevier, Springer, Nature, and all this. So there's a quota, but the quota is large. The quota's up to about 10 over 1,000 journal publication for each year for different universities and all. So it is this is the kind of opportunity that when we collaborate with the lower income nations, I think this gives the ability to leverage on more higher income countries to actually do that kind of a joint publication, joint research, and then we could actually make it more impactful because once it becomes an open access, it reaches out to anybody, and especially the industry practitioner. So they are not going to subscribe to any journal that costs them 2,000 Australian dollars a year, and if they would be able to get all this information, all the research outcome very easily through open access, And this will definitely, spread the word, and they will be able to understand why there are challenges in research, why there are these issues in this area, but not in the other areas. So this is actually a very good opportunity here. So I am the journal co-editor-in-chief in my area, Geotechnical Research, which is hosted by the Institution of Civil Engineers UK. So that's the oldest civil engineering society in the world and one of the most prestigious ones. So I am the co-editor-in-chief, and within that framework, we propose in every year's budgeting to allow funding to lower income countries so that they would be also have the same experience as their regional counterparts to actually go through that process, get that necessary review done, and don't worry about getting tough questions, because the tougher the questions are posed to us, if we can actually answer that, it means that we are on the right track of us doing research. So in terms of challenges, I think there are local challenges as well. Like currently, I think we all hear the news headline on Australian universities, the pay of the vice chancellors and all this. So there's a watchdog overlooking this whole system now. So there's institutional changes, framework being changed, and then there's a lot of restructuring. Visa is a challenge now. So in terms of this restructuring, can you imagine that the high-flying research centers now are brought back and parked under schools? So at this moment, we do not know, schools meaning departments. So if you're the head of department or the deputy head of department research, and then you also have to manage a highly specialized group of people who belong in the research institutes. So how is that going to work? We also do not know. So these are the kind of challenges that we are currently facing. And I think with a lot of collegiate efforts looking at how things are done across the world, I think that will give us a bit of a hint of how to actually move forward and create that necessary impact within industry and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Again, you got your applause. That's some good point there. Interesting point about technology. Sometimes technology is very cheap and can really accelerate.
Yes.
We don't need to we don't need to go through the same pathway that the US went through to become kind of a strong research system.
So like to add open source information.
Yes.
That's your starting point as well. A lot of when you see the slides that I've got on big data analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, you feel overwhelmed by this, but if you look hard enough, there are open forums that that are people of the same interest. They share information. Yeah. So you build on what they've actually done. There's no point starting from zero, because it takes a lot of time, a lot of money, and unfortunately, we only have 24 hours in a day.
There's a way to jump over some of the almost obvious barriers that one faces, even when it's not in a very sophisticated funding system, for example. But then the issue of open access, and actually you give me some hope there, because you're saying journals, we know what the paywalls, huge problems, etc. But you're saying actually researchers have power in that equation, and editors of journals, for example, can advocate from within, can put conditions on the publisher. I think there's a very interesting take on that. Then careers again, researchers are increasingly asked to do much more than research, right? Management, etc., communications, outreach, of course, teaching. How many of those things do researchers get training for? Who teaches a researcher how to be a manager, right? Or even how to run a project, right? In the end, the PhD is a project that answers one single question in 4 to 7 years. That's not actually the definition of project management in the development sector. Let me turn to Claire. Claire, would you like to be next, and then we'll go to Lebanese.
I'll just share my screen again. Just a second. Yes, here we are. I think to answer your question, I think I'll focus first on the key factors that, in my opinion, make our systems less resilient, because those factors, informed and also sort of nurture the rationale behind the Boosting Social Sciences initiative. I think there are three key factors. I'm sure that people present in the room will have many more ideas. But from our point of view, geographical isolation plays a big role. We know that in some smaller nations, especially island countries, social scientists, of course, produce world-class research. However, they can still lack access to regional networks, also to regional resources, and also lack access to regional funding. So this can in turn affect their ability to connect and embed themselves and also disseminate their research in broader research systems. The second factor is the potential risk for institutional isolation. Some research centers or entities can sometimes work in silos, and it sort of echoes to your earlier comments, Francesco, about researchers focusing on national priorities or national institutions. Sometimes also they can, when they do want to collaborate internationally, they can have the tendency to collaborate or to want to collaborate only with what one would call big powerhouses, such as the US or Europe or China, and not necessarily at a regional level. So you have this gap, I would say, between a national level and the global level, which is the regional stage where we want to have an impact through the Boosting Social Sciences initiative. And the last factor, the third factor, would be disciplinary isolation. Social sciences sometimes suffer, at least funding-wise, compared to STEM disciplines. And I think we saw, with COVID-19 again, the need to understand human behaviors, governance systems, and also societal impact. So the cost of isolation on our research systems is, I think, really clear. And with that strong regional networks, that means that research systems are slower to adapt and also to respond to emerging challenges, and also to find innovating solutions that can inform policy making. Now, to turn to the key factors that can make our research systems more resilient, I think it's down to regional connectivity, being able to have inclusive support mechanisms, focus on, of course, multidisciplinarity and the ability to get access to sustained funding. So, for example, institutions like ASREC provide, I think, a good model for building strong networks that connect researchers across borders, and these networks foster knowledge sharing, can reduce duplication of effort, which can be an issue sometimes, and also enable coordinated responses to shared challenges. Programs like the ASREC grants through the Boosting Social Sciences initiatives also demonstrate the importance of prioritizing underrepresented groups, and also by investing in women researchers, like early career scientists, and those from underrepresented communities. I think we can ensure that resilience is built actually from the ground up and not a top-down approach. And the focus on multidisciplinarity is that resilient systems, can break down silos between disciplines. And in the Asia-Pacific region, interdisciplinary collaborations are absolutely essential for addressing complex issues like climate change that require both scientific or STEM approaches and social sciences perspectives. And of course, the last item, which is the sustained funding. Resilience, I think, requires a long-term investment in people, institutions, and also in infrastructures. And the program, like the one funded by the IDRC, show that how targeted funding can actually have outsized impacts when it supports regional collaboration across countries and also capacity building. So just to give you one brief example of this is the ASREC regional mentoring program. So this was initially a pilot program that we will expand from this year on. And the goal was to support early career and also mid-career researchers from, again, these specific categories that we wanted to target through a mentoring program. Also, we know that in some countries, it can sometimes happen that the hierarchy or the balance of power within the research community can be very, very strong. So this was an opportunity through this mentoring program to put the mentees at the center of the whole process. So for example, the mentees would receive, I mean, they receive the resumes of the mentors, and it's only when they would agree on a specific mentor that then the mentors would be contacted to also accept or not to be part of this program. So this initiative, the mentoring program, is across countries. And it's run through virtual meetings every quarter, basically, over 12 months, and it helps create those connections, not just at a national level, but across countries and at a regional scale.
Thank you, Claire. Again, the regional kind of connections, the need to build the infrastructure at the regional level, I think keeps coming back. Lavini, please.
Okay, from a more grassroots level.
Yes, please.
Yes, I thought one of the most important key factors for research systems to be strengthened is just the fact that we need funding and access to funding in the Pacific. Really, that's something that is necessary to pursue research. We can't pursue research any other way unless we are able to access scholarships apart from national grants, donor programs. So I work with a program that's funded by the EU to support capacity building and research in the Pacific region. And that's an opportunity that Pacific Islanders will reach out to be able to do research in their area of interest in the Pacific. I think that's the first key factor. Another one is moving away from single method approach into multidisciplinary approaches. That's what GDN focused on with our program, advising us with a pure scientific research program to have a multidisciplinary approach to it. I think this is important to strengthen research. The other one that, another factor I thought of was being able to develop the research with the people concerned on the ground as co-researchers. And then the research becomes more solution-oriented rather than, well, for the Pacific and its questions that they want to answer, developing the research with them as co-researchers allows you to be able to focus the research towards addressing and become result-oriented. A lot of the research in the Pacific is usually designed from the outside and then brought in, and then midway you get collaboration from people on the ground when the project is already designed, and especially sometimes worse, even just before submitting the project, and then you gather partners to work with you on it. On the other hand, if research is organized with people that are concerned about issue or problems raising in the communities, they become co-researchers, the research is strengthened.
Thank you very much. Back to basics. We can't function without funding. But I think a lot of what you said is not just about funding in itself, is how that funding is put into funding opportunities that allow to do research in a certain way, multidisciplinary way, or you use the rules in the funding to make sure that equity is what drives collaboration. And I personally think that funding agencies have much more power to make these things happen than they use usually, right? And excellence is not the only objective. Yeah, excellence without equity actually can weaken a system This is interesting, no? Like, if you fund only the best people, yeah, the ones, well, not the best people, the ones who can publish in specific journals, for example, then you're already funding the ones who already have capacities. What about the rest? Yeah, in a system, as we heard, that tries to pitch for the top 2% being the only knowledge that it's worth publishing. Now we have 50 minutes left, a little bit less. I wanted to know whether there are questions from the audience. Quick questions, like 20-second question. And so we do a final round with our speakers today. No, that's not a problem. Yes, please. You have a mic? No, but they won't hear you from remote.
Okay. I don't know, mine is a question or it's a statement, but I'm going to just say anyway. I want to acknowledge and comment that all of your presentations. It was quite interesting. What I want to, I was thinking about is the research systems, like it's the what and also the who, right? Like we are looking into the future, how research systems should be for the future, we're trying to look at it as to be resilient, to be sustainable. And I'm also looking at thinking about the upcoming researchers. Right now, I'm speaking about Pacific context. There is a very large gap between upcoming researchers and the researchers. How do we close this gap? Thank you. Who's this? Dominic. Dominic actually talked about the technicality of research. I think, and I saw that. I think that is one of the gaps that exists between the researchers and the upcoming researchers. And these upcoming researchers, I'm talking about students. I'm talking about master's students. I'm talking about PhD students. In the Pacific, it's kind of different from what they do in Europe. I have an experience as a student in Europe. In Europe, there's a very close gap between the students and the professors. It's a very, very thin line between those two. And then coming back to the Pacific, being a student again, as in the Pacific, it's a large gap. So my question is, how do we close this gap? And I think Dr. Shushil is also doing a very good job about it, doing workshops here in the university. And I'm just getting new information about researchers network. So it's very informative, but then the question persists. So I won't be comfortable leaving this room until I ask that question. So yes, I give it up there.
Thank you.
Boy, I wonder, the gap, does it mean that the students are not good enough or are they too good?
No, I think let me respond to it.
More or less. I don't know, are they
Well,
too good or they're not good enough? I
well,
mean, that's not clear, but
I
which
think
way
let
is the
me-
gap working?
Let me respond to it. If you look at the trend of number of research students in the University of the South Pacific, if you go 10 years back, there was hardly any PhD student registered here. And there were very limited scholarships for that level. But right now we are in a situation where we are not finding enough students for the PhD degrees. We have got NPOC scheme, we have got US funding, we have got our internal funding, we have got some other fundings as well. Since the number of students were less, probably I think we didn't pay much attention about that kind of gap between the researchers, academicians and students, the individual supervisors supervising the students. But now that fact is that we are organizing the forums for the students with the supervisors, the forums with the research office as well. And then there are some these training workshops now specifically designed for students and supervisors, and then the data analysis. Looking at all these requirements, the last year, the USP has announced the graduate school actually, and even some of the national universities are opening the similar facilities. There is a attention over that gap, and the slowly it's an effort to fill that gap, and even take the help of the partner universities. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Are you happy with the answer? Could you leave the room now? We don't even want you to sleep here. Okay, excellent. Look, we have just under 10 minutes left. So what I propose if we go through unless you had something else to contribute. Of
Well, I
course.
just wanted to contribute to how we manage ours at the Ministry of Agriculture, which we think should be extended further. We have a research council which deals with analyzing what's been the complaints or whatever is required from what people are facing in the field. They bring it up to a small research forum where they would want to address that to researchers, and the researchers will try and figure out how they can either handle it at the ministry level or try and seek assistance from other organizations to research into what's been required from the ground level. So we would like to strengthen that establishment of the research council, and we are thinking of extending it to other ministries or other research organizations, including Ministry of Health, and those outside the Ministry of Agriculture, since they are more related to each other when it comes to climate change.
So I already see an opportunity there, because my last question was about concrete opportunities, right? So what things are happening that, offer a platform for maybe accelerating kind of investments in research. I think the idea of, seeing where our national funding actually will operate, I think it's an excellent starting point. Can I ask everyone to just, reduce your third answer to a sentence? Yeah. What concrete opportunities you see? Yeah. So we looked at how we would make the case. We looked at where to invest. Can we now just point to a few concrete ideas of where you see an opportunity we shouldn't waste?
Thank you, MC. Since the question is on opportunity, I would like to take this opportunity first with the permission of the Honorable Minister, and I would like to be very to the point. I think the opportunities will be generated through the strong collaborations and partnerships. I think this is an era of collaborations, partnerships, and networks, and then creating common scientific goals. I think for Asia Pacific region, we can think about creating a mobility scheme under which from some funding organizations, even the GDN can help it to get some mobility of our researchers from one part to the other part, sharing the best practices, and then implementing some technological solutions, and sharing the internal processes as well along with the practices. I think I would like to raise here a kind of requirement is some kind of research excellence framework now. There are some universities, some countries which have got this framework, but I think there is now a need to more critically think about having national research excellence frameworks for the universities, and then one having for Asia Pacific, so that we can vet our research with one another and get the support from other parts. Thank you.
Oh, do you want to answer? Okay, please.
Just to add to what has been said, we need to have a strong institutional framework and governance. And I'm talking about here, the Ministry of Agriculture, where we need to have policies, where we need to have strength in our structure and within the institution, additional to what has been mentioned.
I'd just like to add that global warming, sea level rise is everybody's problem. It's a problem of the world. And I think Professor Susil has just rightfully mentioned it's a global partnership. So I really believe that global partnership is the way forward to tackle something that is as big as natural hazard or global or problems related to natural hazards and global warming together. So in this particular aspect, there could be collaboration, movements of people or researchers from one country to another, getting together like this. And I think it's really, really beneficial because, you know, in a common area like this, we all share our experiences. All our experiences are different, one way or another. You're from different discipline, different country, different weather, different climate. We share open sharing, and let's look at the fundamental issues together, and we try to solve it fundamentally together. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it would be strengthening those practitioner working groups or networks on the ground to be able to drive the research at the national or the country level. I think the increasing that opportunity to carry out research through funding access, especially for Pacific Islanders who think research just leads to an academic career, but research, action research, applied research to solving climate change problems.
Thank you, Lavini. Claire, last word.
Yes, thank you. I will use my last 30 seconds to actually highlight an initiative that is undertaken by the GDN, and I think Francesco can, of course, talk about that much better than I would. Is that we need to know exactly each country, especially in the social sciences field, understanding each country's priorities, capacity, and infrastructures. And this is the purpose of the doing research work component of the Boosting Social Sciences program. It is studies to understand how research systems operate at a national level, because once we have a clearer picture of this, we will be able to actually do evidence-based strengthening work that can deliver meaningful results and actionable, of course.
Thank you very much. And we will be doing one of these doing research assessments here in Fiji, funded by the government of Fiji next year. And I think for me personally, the most interesting thing that can come out on an exercise that tries to understand how research is produced, how it circulates, and how it's used is actually to stimulate debates about research quality. What is the quality we want? This is not up to somebody else somewhere else in another country. I think this is the issue. Yeah, let's remember that economic research 15 years ago or 20 years ago, did not make the case for acting on climate. The numbers did not show the urgency of acting on climate, right? That was excellent research according to the criteria of the time, right? So what does excellent research mean in Fiji? I think this could be an enormous contribution to research debates across the globe. Can I give you the last word? Would you like to make a final comment? I mean, I would like to thank you for your time. I mean, thank for the time of everyone on the panel, but of course you're running the country's agricultural policy, so I think I appreciate even more. Is there a final message you'd like to leave us with?
Thank you very much. There's quite a lot that we need from everybody, but I think I have to give a final message today. I think we all need each other, not only as researchers, I think as a provider of information where research could be based on. And I think sharing is more important now in a sense that there has been a lot of isolation in the past. Isolation in the way we do research and the way we do business. It's about time that we share a lot of information that we would have had now to be able for us to have some forward planning for the researchers that is required not only for Fiji, but for the region. And I believe the problems that we have here in Fiji is similar to those that are around the region, and sharing of information on how we can deal with the issues that we have will be best dealt with if we share whatever we have, and even if we have to share the resources that we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very optimistic and open message. And thank you to all our speakers and of course the audience here in the room and at the home. And we'll now move back to the main lecture theatre for our final keynote. Thank you again. Bye, Claire. Thank you for connecting.
Very much. Thank you. Very much. It's a pleasure.
Yes.